This is the bank area of Leeds, a district of almost perpetual change. During the Victorian period it was one of the most crowded and deprived areas of the city. It had a reputation that continued into the 20th century, even as large swathes of housing were removed in slum clearance programmes. For many people arriving in Leeds, it was where they first settled, a tough, uncompromising place which people called home. By the 1840s, 12,000 people, including many of the city's poorest, were crowded into an area of just 40 acres, into irregular streets, courts and alleys, often lacking in sanitation and drainage. Cheap housing and the possibility of work drew people in from other parts of Leeds, the county and further afield. The residents of the bank played their role in developing industry, culture and the character of the city. But looking around, whilst many street names remain, few features of architecture now link the area with its past. Beyond the railway viaducts, Smithies Garth recreation ground, a converted mill on Bow Street and two large churches, there are few signs of the people who lived here before. Many buildings were cleared in the run-up to World War II. Saxton Gardens opened in 1957 and took over a large part of the area. Further transformations have taken place so that now very little is left. The area was known as Hill House Bank in medieval times, but just Bank on current maps. There is a clear incline as the land rises towards a plateau at Richmond Hill in the east. The western edge of the area is likely to have been Lady Beck, which is culverted now, but continues to flow underground under the bus station close by Duke Street and reappears as it reaches the River Aire. It would have formed a clear and natural boundary in the past. Ferns Island was cut off from land at that time, and there was also a small area called Steander, near where the Beck and the Aire met. But the river certainly made up the remainder of the western border further along its course. The outlet of Ladybeck is visible from Leeds Armouries. York Street and the railway offer to form the boundary to the north, but in fact the bank extended beyond them and was dissected by the railway's arrival. Marsh Lane Station was built as the Leeds terminus of the Leeds and Selby Railway at the bottom of the bank and opened as early as 1834. In 1869, the North Eastern Railway's Leeds extension line from Marsh Lane to Leeds New Railway Station was completed, allowing through running trains along the Leeds and Selby line into Leeds and beyond, on viaducts that we still see today. They are one of the few links with the past history of the district that remain. The eastern edge of the bank roughly follows the top of the slope, taking a vague route around the two major churches in the area and heading down to the river. The top of the bank afforded spectacular views over the Aire Valley and city of Leeds, though, as industry was drawn into the area by the abundant water supply provided by the river and beck, the view became more polluted. Coal was available nearby. Land was very cheap. During the 1840s, the population of the bank grew rapidly, especially after 1845, when Irish families were driven from home by famine and settled in large numbers. Some of the Irish migrants were hand loom weavers, looking for work after the Irish textiles industry was ravaged by Acts of Parliament. Others were labourers working on the developing railways. The Irish population doubled to 10,000 in Leeds by 1851, and whilst many settled on the bank, they weren't necessarily made welcome by the existing inhabitants, who were themselves poor and living in dreadful conditions. Life was tough, support was scant, people had to struggle to survive in the streets of small terraced houses. Some help was offered by the church. St Saviour's Church was consecrated in 1845. Built with an anonymous gift of £10,000 from E.B. Pusey, a professor of Hebrew for Oxford University. He encouraged High Anglican worship, a section of the Protestant Church who followed the Catholic traditions of confession and confirmation. This caused disquiet from some quarters. Further movement of the Anglican ministers towards Catholicism caused them to be evicted from St Saviour's in 1851. By this time there was a large Irish Catholic presence on the bank. By chance, one of the converted clergy met with Father Cook of the Obligate Fathers, a French order of Catholics. He was encouraged to take Mass, and after a tour of the insanitary housing, polluted waterways, mills and factories, he recognised the plight of the growing Irish Catholic community. In 1851, Father Cook opened St Mary's Mission in a converted dance hall above the Spitalfield Tavern on Richmond Street. It was converted to a makeshift church for a congregation of 300 and was employed in this capacity for 6 years, until the first phase of St Mary's Catholic Church opened on the brow of the bank in 1857. It was known as the Famine Church and a symbol of better times ahead after the impact of the terrible Irish Famine, but also devastating local outbreaks of typhus and cholera. Scanning the censuses can reveal some details of the individual lives of the population on the bank in Victorian times. There was clearly a large Irish migrant community, mixed in with even larger numbers of people who gave Leeds and Yorkshire as their birthplace. Obviously, we must bear in mind that as time went on, the migrants' children would give their birthplace as Leeds, but using place of birth as a guide, Irish migrants feature more strongly on some streets than others. On Tab Street, for example, there are few people of Irish birth in the 1881 and also 1901 censuses, compared with other parts of the bank. Tab Street was newer housing than some of the other stock in the area, and many of the residents record occupations which might afford regular income. Further investigation is needed to understand why the migrants clustered on some streets and not on others. Tab Street ran up the bank to St Mary's Church, and the steps to the church are one of the few features which still remain today, giving a reference point to the layout of the housing before Saxton Gardens was built. The First World War took its toll of young men on the bank in the same way it did across the country. As the Second World War approached, Leeds was involved in a programme of slum clearance and the building of new flats, most notably Quarry Hill. Saxton Gardens was started on the bank in 1939, but abandoned with the outbreak of war. It was a considerable time before construction was completed in 1957. Its 7 blocks were built as part of a public housing redevelopment and were 5, 7, 9 or 10 floors in height, providing 448 dwellings. The considerate planning in creating buildings of different heights helped to emphasise the sloping nature of the bank. Unusual features included the Garchy refuse disposal system, whereby waste was flushed directly down the sink and pumped to Quarry Hill. Saxton Gardens was successful in providing a range of modern homes, although it wasn't without its problems. As the blocks reached 50 years of age, they were becoming tired and required renovation in 2007. 2 of the blocks at the back had major alterations that meant that just the concrete structure was retained. Landscaping and clearer boundaries have been made to help reduce some of the issues the estate experienced in the past. In recent years, a large road development has cut across the low reaches of the bank, further diluting its identity and taking the remaining older buildings away. But the bank remains a thriving community and a place where people continue to live and work on the very edge of the city centre. As more new houses and apartments appear, so the numbers of residents is increasing once again, and more new people are beginning their life in Leeds, living on the bank.